Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is George, and in this one I'll be speaking briefly about this book I've been reading called Peak Mind by Amishi Jha. And this book I've been really engaged with. I've just sat here in the park for an hour and a half reading this thing, and I've been deeply focused in this book this week. I found it really valuable. The reason I got into it was because I was experiencing a few days of low focus, low motivation, not really able to get traction with anything, and high distractibility. And so I decided to spend a bit of time focused on building my attentional skills and capacity. And this book came up. And alongside it at the start, I watched this documentary film called Free Your Mind about experiments in bringing mindfulness training to children with ADHD as well as soldiers with PTSD, and the beneficial impacts they found for both of those groups of people. Then I found this book, I think initially from the podcast, the interview that she did with Joe Rogan, and then I listened to a few more clips, and then I got the book and got stuck into it. Can you hear me over this helicopter? So I got the book and got stuck into it, and I've been putting hours of focus into this book every day, and it's really teaching me some, I feel, very valuable skills. What it's doing as well is it's bridging, because I'm really on board with the spiritual aspect of meditation, and I want the, cognitive benefits of it. But this book really goes into a scientific breakdown of the neurology of mindfulness, and they're calling the field contemplative neuroscience. So going into it from a neuroscientific and evidence-based point of view, and explaining it in sort of conceptual and technical language, which I'm finding is really helping equip me with a vocabulary and a tool set for understanding what's happening to my attention in moment to moment, as well as taking control of it. So, for example, she breaks down the types of attention into the flashlight. So that's where your attention is directed in any point in time, which could be me looking at the camera right now. But if I hear something in the background, my attention might flicker over to that. As well as the floodlight of attention, which is another attentional system which takes control of the flashlight for things like survival. So if you hear a tiger in the bushes, it's going to stop whatever you were paying attention to before and redirect your flashlight toward that. As well as the executive level, which she calls the juggler. So that's keeping the balls in the air, and that's holding goals in mind. There's a lot more granularity to it than I'm getting into here, but this is sort of a basic overview. So far from this, it's given me a daily practice to do of focusing on my breath and developing that flashlight for 12 minutes a day. And what I've done is I've incorporated this at the start of my day, and I was previously doing this, this is obviously a basic, well-known practice of focus on your breath, and when your mind wanders off, bring it back. But I think in the past, I was doing this with a lower level of detail and a lower frequency of noticing and bringing it back. Whereas here she describes it like dribbling a basketball. And she says that you're probably going to get distracted and have to do this every second. And that's what I've been finding now that I'm paying more attention to it. Every moment I'm finding my attention being pulled away to something, and then I'm deliberately but rapidly bringing it back. It's like I'm catching the basketball and throwing it back at my breath, and noting what I'm being distracted by, whether it's a thought or a feeling or a sensation. And I tried reframing these in the active term, thinking, feeling, and sensing, just because I was bothered by the 3 syllables of the word sensation. But I feel like the noun form of thought, feeling, and sensation are better, because they, in the language of it, they give it a closed off feeling, where I'm not thinking as a continuous process. That was a thought, and the language of it closes off that thought and brings me back to the breath. So noting on a second to second basis of when my attention is being pulled to something else, and being okay with it. Like, your attention will be drawn away. She gave this analogy of or not an analogy, she gave an anecdote of speaking to a expert in meditation who was a director of a mindfulness center and who had been practicing for like 30 years. And she asked him, what is the amount? So she's asking this guy, how long can him, a perceived expert of mindfulness, keep his attention on one topic? And he was like, how long could I keep my attention on something without it wandering away? Probably like 7 seconds. So that really goes to show it's not about developing your ability to keep your attention on something for ages. It's about developing the acuity of knowing instantly when your attention is being pulled away somewhere else, noting what that category is to close off that thought, and then bringing it back to the present moment. And this can stop rumination, it can stop you from being distracted, and then the next key piece is the way that the attention interacts with your working memory. Because your working memory is being written to and erased every few seconds, all the time, constantly, forever, for your entire life. And this can be annoying if you want to keep yourself on a task or keep some piece of information in mind, but once you understand the interplay with attention, and that attention is what is writing to the working memory, you can keep things in there for longer. By noticing when something else has drawn your attention and then bringing it back, you prevent that other thing from writing to your working memory. And by keeping your attention on the thing you're intending, it keeps that in the working memory for longer, which keeps you on task, and it also maximizes the amount that is being written to your longer term memory. So this stuff is dope, and there's heaps more it goes into. I'm probably gonna make more videos on this, but I'm really liking this book, and I actually really highly recommend it, because what it's given me at a broad level is the tactical understanding and the neurological understanding of what's happening with my attention at any moment. And I think this has given me a tool set. What hooked me in initially was she mentioned doing a workshop or a study with ADHD adults without changing their medication, but asking them or putting them through this mindfulness training and then asking them about the outcome. And they said, some of them reported that in the past they would take their stimulant meds and focus for 8 hours on a video game. They would have intense focus, but they wouldn't have control on what the focus was on. But then after this training, they were able to notice when their focus was not on the correct thing, and they had the skill, the muscle trained to pull it back. So that's what I'm trying to have. And I've had a pretty focused past few days since starting this book. There's a lot of other variables going on as well, like sleep, for example, but I'm thinking so far it seems that this book is giving me a lot. So I'm going to keep reading it, I'm going to keep reporting on it. But that's all. Tune in for the next one. Catch you later.